Ko tu me tu tai ki a koutou ki ngā kai whakahaere o tātou nei hui John koutou ko te manatū hauora, tēnei te mihi au ki a koutou, nā tēnei tino angitu ki te kōrero ki te whakahohoe pāna tēnei kaupapa tino whakahere. Nā reira, tēnā koutou katoa. It is really humbling to stand up here after our great presenters that we've already had this morning, and also John's already awesome sum up of everything. So as Joel can come up and give some reflections, and he's kind of reflecting as we're going along. And I'm also conscious that I'm standing in front of a room full of every single person around every single table, and I can see people I recognise out there who are all great health leaders and health decision makers. And so, you know, turning this kōrero, this talk into action as we walk out of this room and back into our institutions, or in my case to my kidney clinic or wherever I am as well, we all have to take the learnings from today back so that when we are standing here in 2040, we can genuinely answer that question, what does health equity look like? Because if we're still standing here asking some of these questions and acknowledging some of these bar graphs, we haven't done our job here today. So kia kaha, me haere atu, keep going when you're out there. I want to reflect on John's quote on from Angelou, Amaya Angelou, on courage. Again, this is going to take courage. Courage to do the right thing. If we don't have, and to paraphrase that quote, if we don't have health equity, all of the other streams that are going on in the other rooms are probably going to make the health equity gap worse, as we've already heard about with the bowel screening. So I think this is the most important stream of our hui. Aroho mai ko rātou mā. All right. It's probably why it's the fullest, and they were blocking people from getting in here, and I had to say, sorry, I'm actually on the panel, and even then they looked at me sideways and thought I was just trying to get in here on the cheap. There's that other Martin Luther King quote, and it's about, of all the forms of inequality and human inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane. And that's another reason why we're in here and why this has now become such an important kōrero for us to all have. Courage. This used to be called closing the gaps, I think, 20 odd years ago, John, when you were at the ministry the first time, possibly. There was a lack of political courage, and perhaps our society wasn't ready at that time to embrace this. When it's health equity, it's actually about being fair and being right and being just. And that is probably why, along with our societal changes and diversity, this has become a more achievable goal than it was 20 years ago, and it is achievable. You know, equity's about needs. It's about right, it's about doing what's right, and it's about doing what's right. And we've heard a bit of that kōrero today. I want to acknowledge Meng, your kōrero. Congratulations on becoming the Race Relations Conciliator in August 2019, I believe, so fresh. The quality of councillors elected these days, I can't vouch for, but the quality of elected councillors back in the day, you know, absolutely awesome the work that you've done out Tairāwhiti with my people out there as well as nō Ngāti Parau te iwi rawa ko whakatoia, so kia ora. You talked about making equity universal and central to what we do, and I just want to reinforce that point here today. We've heard about the equity lens and making sure that that's focused on everything we do. Nina, you brought up the kōrero around all of the barriers that get in the way of good health care, the equitable cancer pathway. At every step there's an opportunity where things are falling over, but also an opportunity to get things right and do things better. You could drive a bus through some of the inequity gaps that are around there, and Helen, you've brought up you know, how you're achieving that. See, this is a thing, you've got to come up with this stuff on the cuff, because I couldn't sit there and PowerPoint this. So, aroha mai whānau. Was that bus, were the people making sure they weren't getting run over by that bus? Oh, okay, all right, yeah, I was making sure that wasn't the case. All right. So, you know, the work that you've done with Te Waka Wahine Hauora, you know, awesome to address geographic inequities. And actually, just along with gender inequities, there's a lot of equity gaps that we can look at. And I'm sort of pleased to say that the one thing the Medical Council is keenly focused on is ensuring that our medical workforce is not only culturally safe so that every interaction that we have with a patient as a doctor is a culturally safe one for the patient, but also that our organisations that we're all part of as doctors and inform in our professional roles, we're advocating and agitating for those organisations to be culturally safe organisations, whether they're delivering healthcare but also to grow and diversify our medical workforce. And on that note, I really would like to acknowledge that some of you may not know this, but in 2023 we're expecting there to be an equal number of female doctors and male doctors in our medical workforce in New Zealand, and I reckon that's an awesome statistic. And then it's going to go even more, so we're going to have more women in the workforce than men in due course. And as I look around this room and I see this room, we talk about how far have we come and how far have we got to go. And also, do we congratulate ourselves enough? I would certainly just want everyone to look around the room and just sort of look at all of the strengths, all of the diversity that we have in this room. And I'd just put to you that it probably wouldn't have looked like this 20, 25, 30 years ago. John, maybe you can answer that question as well. Anyway, so we've got a great room of people here. Yasa, your kōrero is very powerful, very raw. It's always going to be powerful, and I suspect it's always going to be raw. But how we can, especially together, heal, learn, and be better as a people, as a country, through going through tragedy. And I just wonder whether there's that tragedy is an acute example of, in some ways, the longest term historical trauma which has happened in this country to our Indigenous population as well. And so again, this coming together to heal, to do better, and when two cultures collide, as in the case in your talk, you had the Muslim community dislocated, displaced, and then running up against institutions of the state which didn't know how to respond and had to learn how to respond and are going to have to keep learning how to respond. Because not only the next time a tragedy happens, God forbid, but also just the everyday capability and capacity we need to deliver quality healthcare. So look, I'd just like to finish it. I think we are becoming a more mature nation, able to have these difficult conversations, calling racism, racism, calling institutional biases, but also supporting each other along the way. My koro Ranganui Walker, we're so proud of him because we feel that he did a lot to change our society back in the 60s and 70s when these things weren't spoken about openly or as easily as they are today. So we can stand here and be able to move things forward to make the most of our nation as we go into the 2020s. One example here on my lapel pin is the Tino Rangatiratanga flag. If I reflect on what happened at Bastion Point, Takaparawhau 30-odd years ago, compared to how the more recent land disputes have been held out at Ihumātao and the governance role and all of our role in having a much more respectful dialogue, I have hope that by 2020 we will continue to be a better nation and hopefully have our health equity. So kia ora tātou.